The rain started before dawn, hammering the zinc rooftops of Ajegunle until the gutter behind my lodge swelled and carried plastic bottles like tiny boats. I watched from the window, the city still half asleep, thinking of Femi. He'd sent a final voice note 3 nights ago. Meet me at White Sand by the old piling at 2 a.m. Come alone. Then silence. His beat as a reporter had gotten messy lately. Stories about diesel adulteration, stolen pipelines rerouted under houses, a name he whispered like a prayer and then laughed off with, "I beg, I'm joking." He wasn't. You can tell when a friend starts checking his mirrors twice and his jokes come out clipped. By 8, the rain became a mist. I took a kiki to Boundary Market and hired a man with a scar over his eyebrow to drive me in his dented Corolla. "Bad roads today, Ogre," he warned, tapping his dashboard as if it could hear. "But we go manage." We inched through congested streets where hawkers swarmed like bees, offering phone chargers, sachet water, plantain chips. Buses with hand-painted scriptures belched black smoke. A woman in Ankara balanced a basin of bread on her head and smiled at me with the tired grace of Lagos. "Welcome, but mind yourself." The driver swerved near mile 2 and cursed under his breath as a danfo cut across us, horn bleating. At the jetty near the creek, the water was coffee dark and restless. Men in faded life vests loaded jerrycans into a wooden boat, their eyes quick and cautious. I flashed my press badge, not waiting to explain. I followed the map Femi had dropped in my encrypted chat. A red X north of the mangroves, a dotted line like a vein. White Sand was no beach, just a scab of grit and broken brick. The old piling squatted in the shallows like the spine of a dead whale. I was early. That made me nervous. I tucked the phone under my shirt to keep the humidity from killing it, then walked the perimeter, trying to look like I was waiting for no one. I found the first sign Femi had been here, a cigarette stub he favored, mint filter, imported by a cousin who knew someone at Matola Muhammad. Beside it, the sand held a triangular groove, as if a heavy box had been dragged seaward. Farther out, an abandoned flip-flop lay nose down like something ashamed. Footsteps approached along the tidal mud. A boy in a faded Arsenal jersey appeared, bare feet inked with creek water. "You dey find Tokunbo?" he asked. My mouth went dry. "No," I said, too quickly. He grinned, gap-toothed. "Dem say make I tell you to no call police. If you call, ego spoil. Who sent you?" He tilted his head at the piling. Democratic. He lowered his voice to a whisper I had to lean to catch. "Night boat. 12 drums. If you want see your guy, follow dem light when engines start." Then he was gone, slipping into mangroves like a lizard. The rain returned in a curtain. From somewhere upriver came the throat-clearing cough of an outboard. The syndicate, I thought, or someone pretending to be them. I should have turned back. Instead, I tightened the straps on my backpack, slipped my recorder into my pocket, and stepped into the water until the creek swallowed my shins. I waited for the light the boy had promised, and for the first time since the voice note, I felt a shape of hope and the edge of a trap. Somewhere behind me, a siren wailed and then choked, as if it remembered the price. My driver had vanished. My footprints were already filling with rain, slowly. At dusk, the sky bruised purple and the creek breathed diesel. A point of light winked between mangrove shadows, then another, lining up like runway beacons. The night boat rumbled into view, long, low, with a blue tarp sagging over its belly. 3 men in balaclavas stood near the stern, guns tilted like bored arguments. My legs moved before my brain did. I pushed away from the piling and waded until the mud clutched my calves. A hand hooked my collar and yanked me aboard. The world tilted. Someone laughed. The boat knifed the dark. "Press," I said, lifting my badge. A man with a silver tooth took it and slid it into his pocket. "So," he said, "press no day swim for this water unless him Don choose him burial ground." We skimmed through capillaries between stilt houses. A wider channel opened to a metal pontoon lashed to logs. More boats crouched there, their engines ticking. A woman in a yellow raincoat waited with her hands in her pockets and her chin high. She moved like someone who never took a step she could bill to another. "You," she said, nodding at me. "Phone." I killed my recorder and handed both it and the phone over. Her eyes flicked to my shoes. "You know be police. That one shows for shoe. So why you? My friend is missing. So are many things." She jerked her head. "Bring am." They marched me under tarps stretched over scaffolds. Inside, blue drums bulged like whales. Hoses ran from a steel manifold to open jerrycans. A boy no older than 12 sat with a ledger, copying figures with wet fingers. Every so often he tapped a bent nail lashed to a string around his wrist as if it kept time. On a table made of pallets lay a familiar backpack. Femi's. I reached for it. A rifle muzzle tapped my knuckles like a primary school cane. The woman in the raincoat watched me as if grading my reaction. "You want am?" she asked. "Yes." "Then you go work." They set me to counting jerrycans with the ledger boy. I worked and listened to the rain mutate, from sheet to hiss to hush. The boy's name was Tari. He said his uncle taught him numbers, boats, and how to stand on a pontoon when men shouted. "If dem ask you any hard question, you just cough," he advised, delivering a dry, practiced bark. "Dem go think say you know here." Near midnight, the woman returned. She dropped a plastic wristband onto the table. White, with smeared purple letters. Festival of Lights, Freedom Park. Last week's date. Femi had joked he'd go to hear a poet who wrote about pipelines as veins. "He told you?" the woman asked, reading my face. "He tell everybody. Some men come for am there. He follow them because him think say na interview. Na interview, yes, but not wetten him expect." My mouth asked the question anyway. "Where is he?" She looked past me to the rain. "If you wan live," she said, voice almost kind, "carry that book, enter boat, forget this place. Lagos forgets quick." I didn't move. Somewhere deep, metal coughed, a generator kicking. A second later, the creek answered with a rising siren, nearer, greedy. The woman's jaw hardened. "Pack," she snapped. A jerrycan toppled and bled. Tari clutched the ledger to his chest and looked at me the way a child looks at a door that won't open. A rifle cracked outside, the sound flat and close. The warehouse exhaled. Then everybody ran, and, without a choice left to wear, I ran too. The siren grew teeth. Men swarmed the pontoon, boots drumming, voices rising into a single braided shout. Tari pressed the ledger into my hands and shoved me toward a side ladder. "Go," he hissed. I looked for the yellow raincoat and found only the flap of tarp. Somewhere a flare hissed, and the creek smelled of metal. Floodlights detonated across the water. A motorboat with blue strobes slammed against the pontoon. Uniforms spilled, shouting in clipped commands. The yellow raincoat vanished between drums. Tari's push found my spine. I dropped down the side ladder and landed in a half-sunk canoe. The ledger thumped my ribs. I kicked free and paddled with a plank, hugging the pontoon's shadow until we slid under the logs. The world narrowed to oil, wood, breath. We nosed into a reed pocket and waited. The firefight thinned to single shots and angry voices. A generator died with a whine, and darkness rushed in. Beside me, Tari trembled in the canoe's bow. "You sobby paddle?" he asked, whisper thin. "Enough." We inched along the bank until the creek widened into a black sheet. The city hummed out there. When we reached a jetty of tilted boards, Tari sprang out and tied us fast. He led me down alleys. A dog barked, then reconsidered. We emerged at a junction where an Okada rider dozed on his bike under a nylon rain cape. Tari shook him by the shoulder. "2 seats to our papa," he announced. The rider eyed me, eyed the ledger, and named a price. I paid. We flew through the night, tires slapping puddles. At a roadside canteen, I bought Tari hot tea and bread. He cupped the cup with both hands and watched the steam. "Where you carry that book go?" he asked. "Where the story goes. Story no day help anybody if the people weigh like 'em no fit read am." His eyes flicked to the wristband poking from my pocket. "Freedom Park fit get camera. Maybe dem capture your guy." It was the first practical idea that didn't smell like blood. We cut across town in a battered taxi. At Freedom Park the stage was bare, the vendors' stalls shuttered. A guard in a green sweater listened to Fuji from a tiny speaker. I showed him the wristband. "A beg," I said. "I lost my friend last week here. I think the cameras saw him." He hesitated, then tipped his head toward a prefabricated office. Inside, a woman with braids and reading glasses watched a telenovela on her phone. When I explained, she sighed and rolled a chair to a humming DVR. "Date." I gave it. We scanned until lights bloomed and a crowd flowed in. The cameras found aisles, faces, exits. Femi in a grey hoodie, glancing at his phone. He took a call and moved toward Gate C. 3 men slid into his wake, eyes like calculators. At the gate, a 4th shook his hand. "Gone." "Freeze it," I said. We zoomed. The handshake man wore a lapel pin, a triangle crossed by a wave. The clerk showed me a logo, triangle over a stylized wave. Private Maritime Services. Offices in Victoria Island and Abuja. The clerk scrolled a staff list on a website and tapped a name. Operations Director, ex-Navy, media photo beside a senator. The pin matched the logo on his blazer. River and AMP, Stone ran patrol boats, pipeline surveillance, and community engagement. Abuja meant contracts. Victoria Island meant doors with receptionists. I chose the closer door. We stepped into rain, flagged a taxi, and headed for Island, the ledger warm against my ribs like a heart. Victoria Island at noon was a different country. Palms trimmed into spheres, glass towers with guards who wore their sunglasses like a second face. The River and AMP, stone building had a lobby of chilled air and quiet money. Tari's sandals squeaked on the marble. I told him to wait by the coffee cart and marched to reception. The receptionist made a call, eyes on my press badge. A door opened. 2 men in navy blazers appeared. "Mr. Iredale will see you," one said, and ushered us into a conference room. Mr. Iredale entered, lapel pin bright. "You have something of ours," he said. "I have something of my friends," I replied, setting the ledger on the table. He considered me, then Tari. "The boy. He counted drums last night while your contractor robbed a creek." Iredale exhaled. He slid a folder across the table. Surveillance prints showed the pontoon, the drums, the yellow jacket. Angles a drone would own. "We were watching," he said. "The raiders weren't our people." "Your man wore that pin," I said. Iredale unhooked his and set it beside the ledger. "Anyone can wear a wave." The man with the silver tooth leaned on the wall, expression blank. And Femi. Iadil opened a second folder. Freedom Park stills. Femi shook hands with a pinwearer. In the next frame, his left hand slipped a phone into the man's pocket, label facing the camera. Your friend hired us, Iadil said. He suspected a leak above him. He wanted eyes, nothing more, to see who arrived when he moved. He never told me. Because he needed you clean. He flipped the ledger. Figures resolved into bank routes, initials in dates. He also needed someone he trusted to carry this past checkpoints. So the raid. A collision, Iadil said. The syndicate moving stock, and a third force trying to seize leverage. Your presence shifted the heat. The door opened. The woman in the yellow jacket stepped in and nodded once. We found him. She set a phone on the table and pressed play. Femi's tired voice explained the test and the code, asked me to keep harm small, promised he was still pushing. What do you want from me? I asked. Iadil closed the ledger and returned it. Publish, but hold locations that would burn children and small traders. Hit contracts. Name banks. I weighed the book. The palms outside barely moved. Fine, I said. Give me proof. The boy eats first. Tari smiled like a child allowed relief. The woman beckoned him to the door. When they were gone, Iadil tapped the loose pin. The water keeps secrets, he said. Sometimes it needs help telling them. I lifted the ledger, feeling its weight and the shape of its usefulness. The city smelled like it had plans again.